The biocentric universe. Biocentrism is another idea that might have been suppressed back then, but it is a much more recently advanced theory put forth by Dr. Robert Lanza in his 2009 book of the same name. From robertlanza.com, here's a brief description of the book. Every now and then, a simple yet radical idea shakes the very foundations of knowledge. The startling discovery that the world was not flat, challenged and ultimately changed the way people perceived themselves and their relationships with the world. If the earth were really round, it was argued, then the people at the bottom would fall off. For most humans of the 15th century, the notion of earth as a ball of rock was nonsense. The whole of Western natural philosophy is undergoing a sea change again, forced upon us by the experimental findings of quantum theory. At the same time, these findings have increased our doubt and uncertainty about traditional physical explanations of the universe's genesis and structure. Biocentrism completes this shift in worldview, turning the planet upside down again, with the revolutionary view that life creates the universe instead of the other way around. In this new paradigm, life is not just an accidental byproduct of the laws of physics. Biocentrism takes the reader on a seemingly improbable but ultimately inescapable journey through a foreign universe, our own, from the viewpoints of an acclaimed biologist and a leading astronomer. Switching perspective from physics to biology unlocks the cages in which Western science has unwittingly managed to confine itself. Biocentrism shatters the reader's ideas of life, time and space, and even death. At the same time, it releases us from the dull worldview that life is merely the activity of an admixture of carbon and a few other elements. It suggests the exhilarating possibility that life is fundamentally immortal. Biocentrism awakens in readers a new sense of possibility and is full of so many shocking new perspectives that the reader will never see reality the same way again. So life is a point, a frame of reference riding Wheeler's self-excited circuit along. At first, that would be the most primitive life forms imaginable. What makes a bacterium want to continue, to strive to carry on, to see the fifth-dimensional pathway that leads to the best success, to feed upon the energy that is all around it? Life is the universe being aware of itself, and quantum physics is right. We are all one thing. We are all one thing. The universe, by being aware of itself, perhaps even by falling in love with itself, has created, is creating a time crystal, a four-dimensional static structure, which is another way of thinking about what author and futurist Bruce Sterling calls a spime. From our moving viewpoint, skating along with our atoms and molecules confined to a three-dimensional membrane, our minds create the illusion of motion as we observe one Planck frame after another in rapid succession, a flipbook universe out of many other possible flipbooks. Some would describe what we are moving through as a Minkowski space, with each position representing the space-time universe in a particular state. Kevin Gjorbrand called it SOAPs, the set of all possible states. Think of you as a shape within that space. You have a beginning, a now, and an end, and a cloud of other possible versions of you all around you within Everett's many worlds. At this very moment, you have a trajectory within that space, a most likely outcome, but that is not necessarily the one taken. Think of a particle exploring a set of quantum states, like a moth fluttering around inside a globe of every possibility. As it works its way through this forest of branching futures and pasts, it behaves like a wave. As physicist Neil Turok says, the electron obeys a wave equation, even though it's a particle. Quantum mechanics has been experimentally proven many times over to be the truest description of where our reality comes from, despite its constant depiction as being unimaginably weird. Some will dismiss quantum discussions as being irrelevant because the physical reality we are observing is decoherent from all those other probabilities. Our atoms and molecules are solid. They're not clouds of possibility. Every year, though, it seems we have to raise the threshold as to where quantum effects cease to be relevant as new discoveries are made. For instance, here's an interesting article published November 2018 about photosynthetic bacteria exhibiting quantum coupling effects. The link is livescience.com/64085-quantum-bacteria.html. In my first book, I drew this conclusion. The difficulties in determining where the dividing line between the quantum world and the macro world lies stem from the fact that it really is all part of the same continuum. Therefore, the observer is functioning at both the quantum level and as part of the physical world we see around us. This means that each of us is an observer, and each of us is creating our own unique reality, while we continue to participate in a shared consensual reality where the basic physical laws of our universe remain unchanged. The power of no. Notice my use of the phrase consensual reality here. Consensus reality is the more commonly used label for that idea, but for me, saying it that way understates the degree to which we are participating in the world we are observing. Surely most of us, given a moment, can think of the times in our past where we've said, "Hell no, that's not going to happen," or "I'm going to have nothing to do with that." If these many worlds contain the versions of the universe where the opposite outcomes exist, then we already have a simple way of understanding how our participation as observers is more than just a passive acceptance of random outcomes. And to whatever degree possible within our unique situations, we have the agency to change the path we are on. I have been calling this idea the power of no, which of course sounds like a play on Eckhart Tolle's hugely popular power of now concept. Tolle encourages his readers to let go of the past and future and concentrate on the beautiful now that we are all engaged within. For people who are not in danger of losing their lives or their homes, finding ways to be engaged and content with their current situation certainly makes sense. Like I've said many times as a sign-off in my blogs, enjoy the journey. As someone who has had multiple near-death experiences, I suspect I am in one of the more unusual versions of the universe by now. That would explain a lot. At the end of the show, we all take off our masks, and we see we are all the same thing, being observed from a different perspective. The universe continues on. The self-excited circuit doesn't stop just because you do. I believe when I go, all the people I have touched with this project will be there to greet me, and they will see that everything I have done has been with love in my heart for you all. We are all connected, and that's the truth we all will see when we die. Or we can understand from the quantum physics perspective as well. We all return to that big, beautiful one from which we all came, and from there I will go anywhere I choose. What else could I do if this is all a simulation? I will play the next game. I like to imagine that the photograph of Mr. Trump and his buddies smiling down at the glowing orb is them seeing the point from which we can each make the universe of our choosing. If our electromagnetic field is generated from a point modulating in the fifth dimension, then within the timeless perspective, we can see that allows for there to be things that push us from the future and things that pull us from the past. Big money wants things to stay the way they were when they made wheelbarrows full of cash. People with their eye on the future feel pushed into doing something to avoid the coming disasters, whose retrocausality is influencing their decision-making process today. At the end of your life, you will have seen only one outcome, and that life will be part of a unique world line for the universe. Everett's position was that this means free will is an illusion. But that's likely because he hadn't bought into Schrodinger's Eastern mysticism about life and negative entropy. A religious person can say everything that happens is God's will. I'm told the Quran teaches this and follows this logic to completion by saying, therefore, free will is an illusion. I think about it this way. There's your path, and there's the everything else that wasn't your path. Did the everything else choose your life for you? And is the everything else God? Or did you choose your life? And God, as the everything else, represents the forces that helped you along the way, possibly accompanied by a Satan wanting to push you into the ditch whenever he saw his chance. These are two possible interpretations. The free will debate could probably rage forever, and may have more to do with point of view than anything else. Such are the discussions of a reality created by consciousness, as quantum pioneers like Schrödinger and Planck insisted. The power of not. At this point, I should say there is a dark side to the power of no. Connections ignored, eye contacts avoided, conversations with no follow-up, opportunities missed, fortunes squandered, and suppliers blacklisted are all out there in the multiverse. So the hardest thing in the world is to accept how much of your own choice versus chance has gotten you into whatever predicament you might find yourself to be in right now. If none of this feels like it applies to you, then congratulations. You or the people around you have not been pushing your world line towards your negative waveform, your power of not. The power of no and the power of not are part of life. All are about choosing other branches from Everett's many worlds that might not have been chosen through Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Left to its own, these probabilistic outcomes move from the highly ordered beginning to the highest entropy ending of the universe, and a certain number of coincidental yes choices will give benefit just the same. Remember this. Life creates pockets of negative entropy through its decisions to go down different paths than the one that might have been selected through random chance. A yes is going with the flow when it's a good thing, while a no is voting for a change.